Well, he's tried and failed 7 times to become an MP. Yesterday, Nigel Farage said he won't be adding an 8th attempt at this election.
The Brexit Party leader says he thinks he'll help the cause of Brexit better by campaigning all over the country, starting today when his party unveils 600 candidates for Parliament. Why won't you be one of them? Very good morning to you.
Because I can't do both. You know, we're not the Conservative Party or the Labour Party.
Every other party leader will do both.
Yeah, but how long have the Conservatives been around? I think 200 years. The Brexit Party, 6 months. We don't have any safe seats. So, if I fight a seat, that's where I've got to be. I've got a much more important job to do than that. The first is to get around the country and to say to Labour voters, you have been completely let down and had all the promises broken that were made to you. And the second, which is equally important, is to explain to people that when Boris Johnson says his deal will get Brexit done, it will do no such thing.
OK, so, but just on this one issue about you not standing.
Well, I can't do both, that's the point.
Well, except that we've just established that other party leaders do both. So does it not show some political cowardice that if you've lost 7 times, what you're actually really scared of
Susanna,
is
I've only had one.
If you were convinced about your political
I've only had
power,
one realistic chance at winning a seat. All the previous times I stood as a means of getting a message out and building up a political movement. I did have a serious go in 2015. It's the one time I had a go at winning a seat. I finished up spending way too much of my time in that constituency and not out around the country. I'm not making that mistake again. And you know what? Actually, if I can help get enough Brexit Party MPs into Parliament, I'll have done my job.
OK, the front page of the Telegraph here. Farage could ruin UK's hope of Brexit. This is the house paper for the Brexiteers.
For the Conservative Party.
Right.
So let's be clear what's happening here. The Tory tribe is coming together because there's an election. Forget policy, forget Brexit, just get the tribe together. Let's go back to politics as usual. And that's what they're saying.
OK, but look, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Here's the key question, really. You say that Boris Johnson's deal is as bad as Theresa
It's not Brexit.
Right. So what should that deal be including which has any realistic chance of getting through Parliament, which would satisfy you?
Right, so Boris...
Let me phrase that question very specifically.
No, I've got that. So Boris inherited a very difficult position, all right? A new EU treaty that Mrs May had negotiated that was an abject surrender, but a parliament that really was never going to vote for Brexit. The point of general elections is it's when you press the reset button, it's when you start again. There are going to be a different group of men and women in this next parliament. And with a new party manifesto is a chance to drop what was there before and start again.
The whole point
and I can't tell you how disappointed I am that Boris Johnson has picked up Mrs May's treaty, put some new wrapping on it, and suddenly says it's a great new
deal. The compromise in these situations, we've been going at this over 3 years, right? The country's sick and tired.
We've barely started.
Well, I know. I realise that. But we've been going through this process for 3 agonising years. Yeah. It's ripped the country apart, as you know.
The next 3 will be worse. Right. That's the point I'm making.
Right, but there's a reality check here, isn't there? This election has a way of fixing stuff, either way, potentially.
Well, I'd hope so.
Or it could make it more of a mess.
Well, I'd hope so, but this doesn't fix it.
But what people on the right of the argument are saying, on the Conservative side, is, look, Nigel, this is all fine. You can run your 600 candidates. You can cause merry hell. But actually, what you may achieve here, in your craven desire for a pure Brexit as hard as you can get it, is you might trigger Jeremy Corbyn becoming Prime Minister.
Why?
Because he might win.
Why?
Because you'll take votes away from the Conservatives.
Were you guys around in 2015?
You will split the Brexit vote.
I find this amazing.
And either Labour and Corbyn or the Lib Dems in some seats could come up the middle.
Well, this is their argument. This is their argument to you.
Well, I tell you what I find amazing. That you guys and people writing these newspapers seem to have very short memories. Back in 2015, I had the same headlines. Right? I led UKIP into the 2015 general election. I had all the same stuff, all the same arguments, the Tory tribe screaming and shouting, don't take our votes. What happened in 2015? The UKIP vote took more votes from Labour than it did from the Conservatives. Cameron wouldn't have even got a majority without the UKIP. There are 5 million... Hang on. There are 5 million people out there who voted Brexit and voted for Jeremy Corbyn.
There are also millions who voted...
And they are a huge target vote.
But there are millions who voted for Remain. Joe Swinson, who's now the official Stop Brexit Party with Liberal Democrats, has made it very clear now that she will be linking up with other parties to make sure that Remain wins as many seats as possible.
Right.
This will become a Brexit...
Which is why I offered Boris Johnson a deal. Let's form a Leave alliance. Not just the Conservatives and the Brexit
but the deal
party,
you want is Brexit on your terms.
No, it's Brexit.
No, you want him to abandon his deal, Mr. Farage.
But
Look,
this
criticism in the Daily Telegraph.
But this is a Remainers Brexit.
This criticism in the Daily Telegraph is from Steve Baker, the chairman of the European Reserve
who chickened out. Who chickened out.
Get more Brexit in Parliament.
Boris couldn't leave on October the 31st because he couldn't physically do it.
And we now have a general election and a chance to start again. And what I'm saying is, let's take the opportunity.
Aaron Banks says this is wrong, what you're doing. Now, he was one of your big funders before.
Aaron Banks said yesterday that this is 95% the same as Theresa May's so-called deal.
But he still thinks
and
you're wrong.
He said her deal was so bad, be better off staying in the European Union. I can't explain that judgment. I find it very odd. This is Mrs May's deal with a new wrapping on it.
But does it not concern you
directly.
that some of your biggest cheerleaders are now coming together to say, Nigel, come on, put your own desperation for a pure hard Brexit to one side. Be pragmatic and do a deal.
Piers, I don't want a hard Brexit. Brexit was about leaving the institutions of the European Union. What we get with Boris is 3 more years of negotiations minimum. We go on paying. We have taxation without representation. We have no voice. They can do what they like to us, and we're committed to staying part of EU rules forever. That is not Brexit.
Because we have to have a transition period, because business cannot have a cliff that it falls off. So the transition period is essential as part of the deal. You want Boris Johnson to abandon that altogether.
We've had 3.5 years
and just
already.
come out with no deal.
We've had 3.5 years already. This now, and Monsieur Barnier, who's going to negotiate for the EU, says the next phase will last at least 3 years.
How does Boris...
And I think, when the British public wake up to what this deal is actually about, they will be horrified.
OK, but let's get to the election itself. What needs to happen in that election to get you to be able to get the Brexit that you want? You're assuming that if you take your position with your 600 candidates, that somehow that will help Boris Johnson get a big enough majority to go much harder on Brexit? Is that the plan? You won't win enough seats to make much difference.
Well, if you think... Well, hang on a second. If you think about the last 2 years, since 2017, Mrs May was kept in power by 10 DUP MPs. It is likely that we're going to have a hung parliament next time round. So actually, if the Brexit Party get a reasonable number of people in there, they can exert a great influence. What I'm also very worried about is we've got the manifesto launched this week of both the Labour and Conservative parties. And it looks like Boris Johnson is even going to drop a manifesto pledge to leave with no deal if necessary.
Parliament has already voted against them.
It's a new parliament. There are 651.
Yeah, but if it's a hung parliament, there'll be the same problem.
Well, I tell you something, and this is interesting. If you listen to Professor John Curtis, who I think is the acknowledged expert in this country, Curtis said that if Boris did Farage's plan, he'd win a majority of at least 40. So, I'm offering a way here for a real solution.
Polling doesn't show that you're going to get a huge number of seats. Unfortunately, what it looks like is, for the Conservatives and for Brexiteers, you could split the Brexit vote, we could have another hung parliament, and you and every other Brexiteer may not get Brexit at all.
Well, I think what you'll
Imagine,
find,
what would you feel? Would you feel satisfaction if Labour won on your plan?
No, I'm going to take loads of Labour votes.
Labour won, well, you hope to, but if what happens
I did it last time, so why not again?
By splitting the Brexit vote, Labour win,
there is a
second referendum, and you lose.
You've got a choice here in this election. Elections are about choices, all right? You can vote Lib Dem to cancel Brexit completely. You can vote Labour to have a second referendum with a choice of Remain or virtually Remain. You can go for a Remainers Brexit with Boris and stay tied to the institutions of the EU for years and years to come.
Just for the transition period?
No, because even after that, we'll still be bound by the European Court of Justice. We'll still be bound on state aid.
Or you have your option.
You won't get back.
All right.
Or
there's a fifth option. Wait, there's another option.
Which is what?
Which is that actually you swallow your pride a bit, you get behind Boris.
And give up.
You help. Well, let me just put it to you. I'm putting it to you a supposition.
And it's a political compromise.
No, here's what you do. You compromise.
Sellouts aren't compromise.
OK, but you do compromise and you help Boris to get a thumping majority,
that would be
which then allows him to rewrite the rule book with an entirely new parliament, the very thing you're talking about after the event.
If Boris's manifesto does not include the commitment to leave with a clean break if necessary, even Theresa May's manifesto back in 2017 had that.
How would he do it?
Unless you aim high in life, You're never going to
But
get
Nigel,
there.
he's already tried and failed. How would he do that?
Come on. All Boris
You could
wants-
put it in writing, but he's already tried on top of the
All
31st.
Boris
You want
wants-
him to put no deal
all-
into the manifesto.
What Mrs May did.
Yeah, but Nigel,
Mrs May did, and she wasn't exactly a
Nigel
hardliner
Farage,
on Brexit, was she?
How, if he puts in a manifesto, how does he deliver no deal when Parliament has already said it's not going to let it happen?
You have no idea who's going to be in the next Parliament, do you?
I do know this probably...
You've no idea.
No, but I do know you have...
Here's the reason we have elections is to give people fresh choices and to start again.
You're taking a big
It's the
bet
whole
on...
basis.
You're taking a big bet that your strategy means that Boris will have more power to drive a potential no deal if he wants to.
My strategy...
But your strategy could have the complete opposite effect
My strategy-
of actually bouncing Boris out of number 10
Well, I
and
think-
bringing in Jeremy Corbyn.
We are going to hurt the Labour Party in the most extraordinary way. We'll do it in South Wales, we'll do it in the Midlands, we'll do it in the north of England. Those Labour voters have been completely betrayed by the Labour Party, and they're my number one target. And I tell you what, as I say it again, I got those votes in 2015, I'll do it again.